Mark Carney, the Irish-British banker, sold himself to Canadians as the Trump whisperer, the kind of guy who is sophisticated and worldly and operates at the highest levels, the kind of guy who knows how the world actually works, and the only guy tough enough to handle Trump. He said that.
You were at the helm of a company that quite clearly registered much of its business in Bermuda to avoid paying taxes, including, as CTV News reported, registered to an address of a bike shop in Bermuda. You have said that this is the way the world works, and that in the case of pension funds, that leaves more money for pensioners. But in this case, it looks like just plain tax avoidance. This may be a legal practice, and as you say, as the world works, but is it ethical, Mr. Carney?
First off, I'm no longer at Brookfield. Secondly, this follows their arrangements follow the rules, including the tax rules of this country, other countries. And thirdly, as you mentioned in your question, that the structure is organized so that Canadian pension funds can get the most benefit for those pensioners, which are teachers, retired first responders, and public servants. Thank you.
Did not really respond to the question as to your opinion as to if it was ethical, but let me follow up on that. You wrote a book, Values. The thesis of that book was that capitalism or markets left to their own devices don't help humanity. For years, your party, the Liberal Party, has promised to stop the practice of tax avoidance that Brookfield and other companies have engaged in. Do you have the tools to do that? You said so. When are you going to release and tell Canadians what those tools are, and when will you implement them?
In terms of having a fair tax system in Canada, including for corporate taxation, it's absolutely a priority of my government. If we are re-elected, it'd be a priority of our government to ensure that our companies are paying their fair share of taxes.
Well, unlike Pierre Poilievre, he said, he would be tough with Trump, elbows up, he said, and you know he meant it because he kind of did a chicken dance with his lovely bride, elbows up dance. Part of that elbows up approach was to disparage Trump, to threaten Trump, to talk tough about Trump, to make little sneak attacks on Trump. I mean, in the middle of trade negotiations after the election, Carney jacked up an internet tax on U.S. high-tech companies right in the middle of trade negotiations. Total ambush. Carney thought part of being tough was putting tariffs on U.S. goods, and that could make sense. That is how a trade war works, I guess. Except he did so on goods that were specifically exempted by the U.S.-Canada trade deal, the USMCA. Here's some astonishing news about that.
I would maybe add, we've been nicer to Canada at this point than Canada has been to the U.S.
Would you say from what you're seeing, what you're hearing, is there any areas in Canada that have made the current negotiation approach harder to reach a mutually beneficial agreement?
Oh, yeah. I think some of the retaliatory tariffs to the U.S. are a huge irritant. We have protected the integrity of CUSMA. Okay. Our negotiators have said we are not going to implement tariffs on any products that are covered under CUSMA. Canadians have said, those guardrails are off. I think since April, they have been tariffing U.S. products that are part of the CUSMA agreement. Okay, the products that are covered under CUSMA are, they're going into the U.S. tariff-free, and the ones going north are covered, or now have this, I think, 25% tariff on them. Okay. And so what it means is, I know from American companies, they're saying, hey, we're basically going into Canada and we can't sell because we've got a 25% tariff, while our Canadian competitors are coming into the U.S. with no tariffs at all. You put that together with the actions of your provinces where They're saying in certain cases, they're saying, all right, we're going to first buy product from our province. If the product from our province is not available, we are going to buy Canadian. If there's not a Canadian product available, we're going to buy international. And if there's not an international product available, then we may finally consider buying American or maybe not buying at all. Okay. I think, that the Canadians have gone on those issues, they've gone significantly further than where the U.S. has gone. Canada is calling into question the future of CUSMA. It's not the United States of America. It's Canada.
I had to learn that from a citizen journalist because the CBC would never say anything contrary to Mark Carney's narrative. And Carney and his brain trust, whoever they are, thought it was a good idea during these same negotiations to endorse Hamas and Palestine, right when Trump was at the same time trying to negotiate an end to that war. So, I mean, normally no one cares what Canada thinks about a foreign matter around the world, except for it gave encouragement to Hamas and I think scuppered Trump's deal. And just tweaking Trump, just insulting him, just shamelessly saying that Trump wanted to destroy Canada, I don't think Trump does.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen. But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed.
Carney also said he was going to get closer to other countries that are rivals of America instead and reorient our country to China, obviously, and to Europe. He weirdly said that Canada was a natural fit for the European Union.
I want to ensure that France and the whole of Europe works enthusiastically with Canada, the most European of non-European countries, determined like you to maintain the most positive possible relations with the United States. Canada is a reliable, trustworthy, and strong partner of France, which shares our values and lives them through action during this age of economic and geopolitical crises.
Yeah, no, what a laugh. By the way, his European buddies didn't even invite him to the White House last week to talk peace about Ukraine. Tiny little Finland was there, but not Canada. Now, I don't know who blackballed Mark Carney. Maybe it was Zelensky, but probably not because Canada is such a big donor. Was it the Europeans? Or maybe it was Trump himself. I don't know. All I know was that no one invited Canada, and frankly, no one seemed to miss Canada's presence. But boy, is Carney bad at all of this, isn't he? And Carney's closest ally, the conservative in name only, Doug Ford, the alleged conservative Premier of Ontario, he has no role in foreign affairs. He's never missed an opportunity to just be rude and stupid towards Trump.
What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look upon it. And when I talk to the governors and senators and Congress people, even Republicans totally disagree, but they're too scared to come out and say anything because the president will go after them. Outside of a few senators, and I want to thank them for coming out and standing with not just American people, but their closest friends and allies, which is Canada. And again, we love the Americans. It's unfortunate President Trump decided to go down this road.
You know, if that kind of thing would actually work, I'd get it. But have you ever heard of Trump responding positively to someone insulting him? I mean, have you ever? And just this week, Doug Ford said he's not going to stop with his insults.
I'll never stop, poking Donald Trump, but we're going to focus on what we can do so that no matter who the next president is or whatever the next crisis, we're able to protect our workers, the services the public relies on, and our communities, not just from President Trump, but from anything that comes our way for decades to come.
Yeah, well, I guess we saw the fruits of this strategy. Here's Mark Carney a few hours ago in that plodding, monotonous, bureaucratic tone of voice, completely surrendering to Trump, just abjectly, just removing all the tariffs he had placed on America and just accepting whatever Trump wants to do, he's fine with.
So let's be absolutely clear. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country. So as we work to address outstanding trade issues with the United States, it's important, it's vital. We do everything we can to preserve this unique advantage for Canadian workers, Canadian businesses. And doing so will require both building on a soon-to-be revised CUSMA, our free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico, as well as developing a new form of trade and security partnership with the United States. In this context, and consistent with Canada's commitment to CUSMA, I'm announcing today that the Canadian government will now match the United States by removing all of Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods specifically covered under CUSMA.
At pretty much every stop during the election, you referenced doubles up and saying that was going to be the strategy you take with the Americans. You also consistently said that Donald Trump was trying to break us so he could own us. Your new argument today is that Canadians should accept basically the best of a bad deal. What's been the change?
Wait. I reject the premise of that question. Or your characterization of what I'm saying. We have the best deal with the United States right now. Okay, we have the best deal. Look at the numbers. Our tariff is 5.5%. We have 85% of our goods are free trade. It's not what we used to have. Nobody has a deal with the United States that they used to have. Nobody does. They have fundamentally changed. It's their right. We respect it. They have fundamentally changed their trade policy. They have new objectives. And they haven't just talked about those objectives. They put in place tariffs, and they have signed a series of trade deals, including with the European Union, including with others, that have put those into effect, okay? So we're in a position where we have held out, not signed a deal that we don't agree with or that we don't think is in the best interest of Canadians, and focused on, and we will remain focused on those strategic sectors to the best interests of Canada first. Of course, America will focus on the best interests of the U.S. But we do so from a position where we're respecting, with this decision, we're respecting our agreement with the United States, and we are matching what they have done. That puts us in a good position for the next phase of the.
It was sort of pitiful. It was sort of sad. He just sort of gave everything away. And then he said, hey, guys, it's okay because we still have the best deal in the world. And I did a really good job. And I'm a really good boy. You know, I don't think I've ever seen a worse negotiator in my entire life. So much weirdness. I mean, I don't get it. Just yesterday, Anita Anand, Carney's pro-Hamas foreign minister, managed to get a very brief meeting with Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And this is after the U.S. really wouldn't meet with Canadians. But reportedly, Anand cut the meeting short and came home early for other matters? What is more important? I don't know, another memo about Palestine or something? It's so weird, so weak, so unprofessional. And mainly what a total failure of his campaign promises. What's supposed to happen now? But what's so interesting to me is how the Liberal Party and their media allies, they were totally in support of this disastrous strategy of trying to out-bully Trump, out-insult Trump. They screamed at Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, who actually went down to Washington, D.C. to make the case for Alberta in good faith, one person at a time. She didn't use insults or threats. The entire media party called her a traitor. They used those words. Here's that crackpot at the CBC and the Globe and Mail, the once sane Andrew Coyne, responding to someone calling Danielle Smith a traitor. When Washington talks to the British, it's leadership. When Benedict Arnold talks to them, it's treason. Maybe it matters what you say to them. He's saying that by trying to negotiate with Trump, Danielle Smith was a traitor like Benedict Arnold. Yeah, it's tough to take the media party seriously anymore, though. They'll immediately rebrand Carney's abject surrender as brave leadership. No more talk about treason for dealing with Trump, just like they immediately accepted Mark Carney setting the carbon tax to zero. Just immediately, 20 years of banging the drum for climate change was ended because their hero, Mark Carney, was against the carbon tax for now. They really never believed in it all along. It was just a game, a trick to trip up the conservatives. And that's just not useful now, so they've all stopped caring. But Mark Carney didn't just surrender back to zero with Trump. Today, Trump unveiled new tariffs on Canada, and Carney's fine with that. Tariffs include steel and aluminum. I mean, remember, Carney famously said, "Who needs steel anyways?" Well, a lot of people do. Here's Saskatchewan's Premier Scott Moe. He said the U.S. has expanded its steel and aluminum tariffs to manufactured products that include Canadian steel and aluminum. This is a major blow to Saskatchewan ag equipment makers who employ thousands of people in our province. Our Minister of Trade, Warren Ketting, has written to the federal government to ask what they are doing to have these tariffs removed and what they're doing to support these businesses and workers while the tariffs are in place. Yeah, the thing is, though, Saskatchewan, it has just one single Liberal MP. They don't care about Saskatchewan and Ottawa. I mean, my proof to you is they haven't lifted a finger. They haven't even verbally said anything about China's 100% tariffs on Saskatchewan canola crops. Hey, real question. Can you name a single thing that Mark Carney has achieved as Prime Minister? He's been Prime Minister for 161 days today. It's almost half a year. What has he done? Parliament has sat for a grand total of just 22 days during that time. Mark Carney would do disastrously in question period. So I say again, what has he done? He hasn't even brought in a budget, so much for this smart banker. He has no deal with the U.S. Immigration is skyrocketing. Crime is skyrocketing. Taxes are skyrocketing. Oh, they did get another thank you letter from Hamas, so that's what he's achieved. Total failure. I thought this guy was supposed to be an improvement over Justin Trudeau.